one. Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the I Be Me, You Be You show. I'm your host, Antoine Valentine, and joining me today is a very special guest, none other than the great Rene DValery. Rene DValery is a California licensed psychotherapist who has a private practice for almost 18 years now that focuses on working with parents who need support and dealing with difficult family situations while helping them develop their parenting skills. I know that's probably just the tip of the iceberg, Rene, and there's lots involved in sort of what you're doing. And my hope today is just to learn more about that because I'm genuinely just curious. Is there anything about you that you think is important for people to know other than your experience
Um,
in
that
psychotherapy?
sure. I mean, I can tell you a bunch of things, but first, thank you for the introduction. That's a great intro. I don't know how great I am, but that's a great introduction. So thank you very much for it. Oh, geez. I mean, what would you like to know about me, or what I think that it would be appropriate to know about this? So I did not just start being a psychotherapist off the get-go. I mean, I had a very different life before I became a psychotherapist. I used to work in licensing and marketing for many, 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 many years, and I loved it. But different things in life brought me into this line of work, which frankly, it is. I think that it was like the best decision that I've made in terms of careers. Yeah, yeah.
So yes, I do remember that about you from your marketing expertise and experience. And yeah, so help me understand that transition. What drove you to sort of make a switch? And was it, what I'm generally curious about is this what you were meant to do? And if so, how did you figure that out when you were in marketing?
That's a very good question. So let me give you a little bit more of a background, which you already know, but I'll share it with whoever is going to be listening to this or watching this. So I was born in Nicaragua, and I left Nicaragua in the early 80s after the war happening over there. And it was a very tumultuous time. Ended up coming to the United States, and I had to start a life just from scratch, basically. So there there were a lot of changes that happened in my family, including a separation. You know, my parents separated, my siblings went in a different way, and I had to become what I didn't know at that time, kind of like a pseudo husband. I know that sounds really weird, but I became kind of like the man of the family at age 11 or 12, and I didn't know that there was a lot of responsibility that had been given to me, unwanted responsibility, but I basically just like um, roll with the punches, and I didn't realize how a lot of the things that happened in my family and to me early in life had an effect on me
Mhm.
until much later on when I started actually going to therapy, which is actually where this transition began to happen. Um, yeah. So before all this happened, Antoine, um, when I was in my early teens, maybe even preteen, I was terrified of having to leave the United States and going back to Nicaragua. I did not want to go back to the bombs. I did not want to go back to the scarcity. I did not want to go back to all of that, all the really terrible stuff that was going on over there. So um, I recognized that the way that I was going to be able to stay here, in case that I was ever called into a judge in front of a judge, was to prove that I was a really good citizen. And how was I going to be a really good citizen? I had to get the best grades. I had to walk the line right in the middle, not ever get in trouble, just kind of be the best possible kid that I could be. And that's what I did. I was that nerd in school that was getting the really good grades and participating in all these extracurricular activities and all of that. And I was walking that very thin line, not to get in, not to be detected as as somebody who wouldn't be worth staying in the United States. Anyway, but the other part of this was that because of the grades and because of my activities and because of everything that I was doing, I was able to land going into UC Berkeley. Okay. And that was fantastic. I went in with scholarships. I went in with a lot of support, and and there, I decided that I wanted to study. What was it? The first degree that I went for was economics because I was always really good with people, but I was always really good with numbers. Well, I ended up hating it. So I switched my degree to mathematics because, like I said, I was really good with numbers. And at the same time, I was taking courses, the extra courses that you have to take, and one of them was psychology. And I fell in love with psychology. So, I mean, understanding the human mind, being very curious how people operate, why we do things that we do, was just really amazing. But at the same time, I started discovering myself and like recognizing that there was a lot going on up here. So I switched my degree again to psychology, and I ended up graduating from in Berkeley from 2 degrees, psychology and French literature. But that's another story right there. When I graduated, I started looking for work. I mean, what are you going to do with a psych major and a French literature major, really? So I went to a job placement agency. That's what we used to do back then. And I landed a job in licensing and marketing. I had no idea what in the world licensing was, but I loved it. It was wonderful. It was creative. I got to travel. I got to meet really amazing people. I got to do this great job and working with really creative and wonderful individuals. And I did that for a number of years, 14 years. And after many transitions of jobs, I just started recognizing that I was doing really good work, making a lot of money for people, uh, developing the things that I was developing for them. But I felt kind of empty inside, and I wanted to do something different. Okay, I felt like I needed to do something different. Um, I skipped one part over here. When I was in my mid 20s or early 20s, uh, I was also dealing a lot with like things that were going on in my head, and and a friend of mine suggested you should go to therapy. You should go to therapy. And I was always curious about therapy, but I just didn't know how to start it or how to find a therapist. And he recommended this one therapist in San Francisco. And I said, what the heck? I'm gonna go see him. I mean, what can it be? I'll be in therapy for 8 weeks and so on. And we started processing a lot of the things that were going on at that time. But inevitably, as we were talking about these other things just started coming up, my dad's abandonment, the war in Nicaragua, the relationship with my mom, my own relationships with people, all of this stuff just started coming up that after the 8 weeks, I remember looking at my therapist and saying, hey, how much longer are we going to be here? And he said, well, I think that we should explore this, and that. And I remember sitting back down and going, oh my God, I'm going to be here forever. And I did not know that that was actually true because I ended up getting into that world myself. So here I am in this world nowadays. And so I did a lot of processing over the next so many years. So when I got to that point that I was telling you that I felt like I needed to do something different, I wanted to do what I felt that had been done with me by my therapist, making me feel better, making like my world changed. I became a happier person. I became a more focused person. I became somebody that actually liked myself a lot more than before I went into therapy. I mean, my world changed completely, and I wanted to do the same thing for other people. So when I came to that point of deciding I don't want to do this licensing and marketing anymore. I want to do something more meaningful. It was becoming a therapist that I decided to go into. And that's what happened in the early 2000s. I was still working in marketing and licensing, and but my job was I changed jobs to get a job that was going to be very flexible, and I was able to go to grad school. I did a specialization in somatic therapy, and and you know, from there on, I mean, I can go into more details if you want me to, but from there on, this is what I do now. I left that world and I started this new world. It was a big change. Yeah.
Yeah, so it sounds like um, you greatly benefited from psychotherapy. And if I understood you correctly, you felt like maybe doing that for others was something you felt aligned with your true self or what you were really meant to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there were Antoine, there were um signals earlier in my life that this may have been where I was going to end up going. I mean, I remember, you're gonna think this is crazy, but I remember being, I think about 8 years old, 7 or 8 years old back in Nicaragua. And there was one guy who worked at my dad's farm that he was probably in his 20s. And I remember him saying one day that he couldn't read. Okay. And that really hit me because here I am, a 7, 8 year old kid that I could read perfectly. I could do math perfectly, no problem at all. And I figure, how is it possible that there is somebody who can't read? And I remember telling him, I'm going to teach you how to read. Okay. I'm going to teach you how to read. And in my house, there was like a big blackboard. And I remember that he would come to my house like a few afternoons a week, and I would teach him like the basics of um, of the ABCs and like how words could form and everything. So I don't know if that made a difference in the long run in his life, but it was always in me to like give something back to people. And when I was in high school, they started a program that it was called it was like the peer support program or something, that it was basically for students that were doing well, who were getting good grades and who, basically the nerds, um, how we could help kids that were having difficulty. So they would pair us with those kids to be kind of like their mentor, etc. And I remember when I found out about that program, I immediately enrolled in it, and I got paired with a few kids, and that felt very fulfilling to me. I actually didn't remember that until not too long ago. That I'm like, oh yeah, I remember, you know, having this in mind even before all this was in my mind. So there were some markers before that signal to it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And you mentioned you had some traumatic experiences in your life, as many of us do. Someone has suggested that you talk to someone. It sounded like you were open to the idea. But my perception, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm curious. I know, at least in my case, I did go to therapy, and I do believe in mental health, and talking to someone if you feel that you want to explore, you know, and better understand, what your childhood trauma, etc. Is it true that men are more reluctant to seek mental health? And if so, why do you think that is?
I think it's first of all, yes, definitely. Um, Definitely men are a lot more reluctant to seek mental health services. I think a lot of it has to deal with the stigma of like a man has got to be a macho man, and um, I got to resolve my own issues. And kind of like the old sentiments of like a man never cries, or man is not supposed to feel, a man is supposed to be strong. And there is a confusion of what strength is. It's like it is believed widely the strength is like holding things in, not showing any emotion, not not displaying what is going on inside of you, but that is total BS. Okay. It's like what that does is like gives you a heart attack early in life. Okay. And the reality is that it's when somebody's living under such a curtain, such this metal curtain, they're not really being themselves. It's like, how can you relate to the world? How can you relate to your spouse? How can you relate to your children if you're not really being yourself out there? Okay. And what is the message that is conveying to your family, to your children, to your friends, if you're going to be hermetically sealed? Okay. It's like, is that the way that is perpetuated, or that you want it to be perpetuated the way that it was perpetuated with you? Okay. So I think that is a big part of it, is the stigma of like what a man is supposed to be, which is total BS. There is no such thing of the way that a man is supposed to be or that a woman is supposed to be. We're just supposed to be human beings. And part of being a human being is feeling, having emotions, um, breathing. This is just who we are. Yeah.
Do you work in your practice? Do you work with couples? And if so, have you been in a situation where one of the two parties doesn't want to be there?
Yeah.
And how do
Yeah.
you help get that person to open up, regardless of the gender?
So I actually don't work very much with couples. Okay, that's my husband works with couples, and I think you're going to be interviewing him, one
I
of
hope
these
so.
days.
I hope so.
Okay, and but I don't work with couples because my forte is actually working with the parents. Okay, and yes, there have been times that I have worked with parents that are separated, and part of my job is to help them co-parent while they're not uh, while they themselves may not necessarily have the best situation or exchanges. But my main forte is working with parents who want to develop tools, who have difficulty understanding what kids are going through. That's a big part of my job. The other part of my job, the other part of my private practice, is working a lot with immigrants. Okay. I work with a lot of folks who have come to the United States. Um, and yeah, and they have had a lot of difficulties in the United States. I work with a lot of people who have been victims of crimes, a lot of people with trauma. Um, yeah, that's the bulk of it. But couples themselves, I stray away from that, from working with couples, because I just don't feel that it's my strength, big time. But yes, I have done it, and yes, I have had situations where one person is like, "Why am I here?" You know.
Okay, so what are some maybe best practices, or what recommendations do you give? Let's say someone again is in a relationship with someone else, and that they have issues, they have things that they want to talk about, but one of the two parties doesn't want to talk, whether it's with a therapist or with each other. Do you have any like successful tips or tricks that you've shared with people where it can help maybe break down some of that reluctance to communicate and to engage in a dialogue and maybe address some of the issues?
Well, there are a couple of things in there that I can throw in. So, if there is one person in the couple that does not want to engage in the conversation, um, the person who does want to engage in the conversation needs to be curious what's holding this person back. Okay. It's like that person who doesn't want to engage, they're not doing it just because they don't want to engage. They're not doing it because, you know what, I'm just going to dig in my heels and not participate in this. There is something that is holding them back. It may be a trauma, it may be just life circumstances. There may be something in there. And that is where the one who wants to engage needs to say something to that effect. I don't know what might be going on with you, um, but I really feel like we do need to talk about this, and I am a safe person to talk about it. I'm not going anywhere, uh, but actually mean it. Actually mean it. Like get to that place where the person who wants to speak can take whatever may be said by the other person without responding in a big way. That person needs to be safe. Like the person who wants to speak needs to feel that the person who doesn't want to speak needs to feel that the one who wants to speak is a safe person, no matter what. Okay. And that even though there may be disappointments, there may be some upsets and anything, you're going to be able to work through it, you know? And you got to remember also that people experience a lot of shame in their life. And shame can be manifested or demonstrated in many different ways. So a lot of times, the person who may not want to speak may be having to deal with feelings of shame. It may not even be necessarily because of what's happening right now, but something that happened, 10, 15, 20 years ago. And carrying shame for a long time can really chip at your person big time. Okay. So the safety there needs to be that safety in there.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
So tell me more about the cases. Again, you mentioned you work with a lot with immigrants, and when we were prepping for this, you told me a little bit about the work you do where families are separated, and I was really intrigued by that. Um, can you tell us a little bit more about the types of cases you're dealing with immigrants and where there's
Sure.
separation between parents and children?
Sure. So I have actually dealt with both sides. I have dealt with the parents, and in other cases, I have dealt with the children. But there are many, many, many situations, many instances in which um, uh, uh, parents parents have to leave their country for whatever reason. A lot of times they leave their countries because of persecution, because of war, because of gangs are trying to force them to like join them, otherwise they're going to kill them, or their families. There are a lot of times that they leave because there is no work or perspectives for them in their country. So there are like a wide array of reasons why people sometimes leave their country. And what ends up happening a lot of times is that they have to leave their children behind. Okay. They can either cannot afford bringing their children with them, or it's too dangerous to bring their children in. So what ends up happening is that these kids, they are um, they are put to the care of their grandparents most of the time. That's what I hear. Sometimes of an aunt or an uncle, but most of the time it's a grandparent. When the parent arrives to the United States and they get settled, they start working and they start sending money back to their kids. Nowadays, they can get in touch by Zoom, not by Zoom, by WhatsApp, um, and it's easy to at least have that visual connection. But years go by, years go by. So the child is growing up here, okay? The parent is getting older over here, and they are not having an exchange every single day the way the parents have with their kids every single day. You see them growing up every day. You see new things happening every day. You see their minds changing. You see their feelings being exposed every single day. Well, that exchange is not happening when one parent is here and the child is over here, but time is passing and they're getting older. Okay. So um, after many years, uh, when the parent really gets settled, okay, and they have the money to send for their kids, they do very often. So it's like, okay, now come to the United States. And when that kid comes to the States and 7, 8, 10 years have passed and they haven't seen each other in person or having that close relationship, there is a big valley between them. There is a huge valley. right there. And there is also a huge expectation. The parent believes that by virtue of being my child, there is a certain way that you're going to behave towards me. Okay, you're going to love me because I'm your parent. You're going to respect me because I'm your parent. You're going to just be fantastic because I'm your parent and I stand for you. Okay. And meanwhile, the child also has an expectation for the parent of like, you are this person that has been this amazing individual in my computer screen or in my on my phone or in my tablet that I talk to once or twice a week, okay? And who sends me toys and who sends me clothes and who sends me money. So so you see that discrepancy that that's not real reality for either side. And now, boom, they're brought together and they don't recognize that this is not real. So the conflicts begin, big conflicts begin. Okay. Um, the other thing that happens here is that when a child is left um, in their country, regardless of the reason, there is an inherent resentment that gets built. Okay, the way that a child interprets the world up until the age that they may be about, I think it's 8 or 9, maybe even a little bit older in some cases, is that everything that happens in the world is because of me. Okay, so there is a self-centerism, an egotistical thing that happens with children, which is normal. It's part of development. Okay, so the way that they see the world is that whatever happens to their parents, whatever happens in the world, it's is caused by them. So when a parent leaves, they did something in their mind. My parent left me not because we have no food or because there is no work or because they're being persecuted. No, 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 no. The only thing that the child sees is that they left me. Okay. And they do not love me. Okay. So there goes the resentment. You left me behind. Okay. Well, the parent who left because of XYZ reason, tries to justify themselves. No, I didn't leave you. I've been sending money. I've been sending toys. I've been sending clothes. I've been calling you every week. And I left because of this, and that. But that resentment is already in there and it needs to be processed. It needs to be talked about. It needs to be brought out. Okay. And a lot of times it doesn't happen until, a therapist brings it up and says, have you considered this? And then there is an aha moment that is like, well, there usually isn't an immediate aha moment. There is usually a moment of resistance of like, no, 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 you're wrong. You're wrong. No. Okay. But after you talk it and you dig into it and you really delve into it, then there is the aha moment of like, oh, wow. Okay. Yes, I need to do this. So, like I said, I've worked with this on both sides. I have had adult children who had been left in their countries and they still had not resolved their issues. And I have worked with parents who have brought their children in and have not resolved that issue. So that's what it is.
Okay, got it. And I was curious, and I guess you kind of just answered it, but who typically initiates this desire to come together with a therapist and seek help? Again, is it typically the parents that are bringing the children? Who identifies the issue, or is it the child that identifies the issue and gets their parents? And again, it kind of ties back to my other question regarding what do you do when there's, I assume there's typically or maybe cases where not everyone who's there wants to be there and they feel like
Absolutely.
they have to be there to keep the peace or whatnot. So
Yeah.
just curious, do you see any difference there regarding who's initiating this, and how do you deal with,
Yeah.
again, when not all parties are interested in participating?
So it's case by case, Antoine. I mean, I have had cases in which let me backtrack it a little bit. Um, a parent is not going to come, a parent or a child is not going to come into my therapy room and say, well, because there was this separation with my parent that that I'm having difficulties with my parent, or because of this separation that we've had with my child, we're having difficulties. No, no, no. They will present as, oh my God, it is so hard, like dealing with my kid. Okay. I cannot deal with my kid. My kid is disrespectful. My kid is not going to school. My kid is doing this. My kid is doing that. And he or she does not even want to speak to me. They go into the room, they slam. So that's how it starts. Okay. So then I start taking history, start getting all the history. And inevitably in the history is going to come up. Well, yeah, I mean, I left my country when he was 2 years old, and he rejoined. He came back to live with us now that he's 11. So 9 years went by. Okay, yeah, yeah, 9 years went by, but no big deal. Okay, so that's where we get into that one. Of course, I don't go right into that immediately. I mean, it's just something that I need to explore as part of the exploration that I do with
Hmm.
everything else. Is there anything else happening in the family? Is there anything that is causing stress in the family right now? Are there any developmental issues that we need to think about? So I do a lot of exploration, but a lot of the times it is that unspoken um, thing that happened that is at the root of what's going on in the relationship, okay, or lack of relationship. So if the parent brings in that subject when a kid is let's say up to a preteen, okay, well, guess what? It is the preteen that is not going to want to be there, okay? So I've had to do a lot of work in like building the trust with that little kid for them to be able to feel comfortable enough in saying, yeah, this is how I feel about my parents, okay? And then bringing them together with their parents so that they can have a conversation right there. And I tell you one thing, the most powerful thing that I have seen in a relationship between a child and a parent is when a parent apologizes. You know, when a parent can say, I am so sorry. I did not know that my action, did this to you or affected you this way. I am so sorry. That makes a kid being seen. That makes a kid feeling important. Oh my God, I'm important to my parent. Okay. And, I am so important that my parent actually apologized to me. Wow. All right. And I have to say that I have loved to see those exchanges, especially with those dads in particular, who are like the really tough dad that they do not bend for anything, like a Game of Thrones dad. Okay. And and becoming soft and going to their kid, like getting to their level, not from up here to down here, but actually coming down to their level and saying, I am so sorry. Okay. And I did not know that my leaving did this to you or affected you this way. Yes, I had to leave because of XYZ reason, but I did not even think about what this may have meant to you or how this, was interpreted by you. That's one instance. I've also worked with let me see. I have this situation that this client that I have in mind. I loved her. She was fantastic. She funny thing. I worked with her mother when she brought her daughter to the United States. And this kind of situation that I just described to you started happening. So I worked with the mom. Many, many, many years later, like 5, 6 years later, I got a call from the kid saying, I need to go to therapy because there is like too much going on in my mind. So then I started working with her in processing all of these things that even though the mom had done a lot of work and had done um, a lot to move forward in this relationship, the kid, now in her early 20s, was like feeling that she was still holding a lot of things in and needed to process it. It was very hard for her to recognize that she had not been abandoned. And we got to a place that she was much better um, at accepting what had happened, not as something that had happened to her, but as something that had happened. but there was still a lot that I have a feeling that there were a lot of other traumatic things that happened to that kid that we didn't even have the chance to talk about because there was just so much. Yeah.
Yeah, so obviously there's the feelings of abandonment in those specific cases, perhaps where you have the family immigrating while leaving the children behind, or vice versa. We know obviously that there's other issues that can occur that cause trauma, physical abuse, mental abuse, etc. Would you say that one of the most important steps, if not maybe the first step to healing, is just giving someone the opportunity to express themselves
Yeah. I
and
mean, that's
articulate sort of those thoughts and feelings?
Antoine, it's funny that you bring that up because in my other part of the work that I do, I also work, like I said, with victims of crime. Okay, I work a lot with victims of crime, and a lot of these victims of crime, um, they often need a report for me to write for various reasons. I'm not going to go into the details of that, but they these are people who have never been to psychotherapy before. These are people who are very skittish about psychotherapy because of, like, again, stigma. And just like what you asked me earlier, are men more uh, opposed to going to therapy? I'm going to make a huge generalization over here. Latinos in general are very opposed to going to therapy because there is an unfounded belief that if you go to therapy, it's because you're crazy. And it's like, no, that's not it. So anyway, I work with a lot of Latino clients who have been victims of crime and who have never been to therapy before and who are like, "Ugh, yeah, I've got to go see you because we got to go see you for this report that we got to write." So I explained to them, we're going to meet for 2 sessions, 2 to 3 sessions, and that's it. Each session is going to be about 2 hours long. Okay. Um, in those sessions, I am going to explore with you what happened. I'm going to explore a little bit about your life before this happened. And we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of, like, the day of whatever was the violent crime that you were exposed to. Okay. So first I try to create a very safe space. We talk, and I take things very slowly with them. And then we get into it. And as the client is telling me what happened that day, okay, what happened throughout that whole day, not necessarily just what happened during the event that they were attacked or they were robbed or they were hit or whatever, but I want to hear what happened the entire day. I slow them down. I ask them to look around the room. We do breathing exercises. We do all sorts of things in there. And you know, 99% of the time that when we finish doing this work, I get the response, "Oh my God, I feel so much lighter. I have never spoken to anybody about this before. I have never brought it up to maybe more than my wife or my husband. I have never spoken about this to anybody but maybe my mother. And whoa, talking about it feels like a total, like a weight was taken off my shoulders." So that's exactly what you're talking about. When people are given the space to express themselves, when they're given the space to just kind of like speak and be seen without judgment, but with care and with empathy, there is an inevitable change that happens in that person because most people in this world don't have somebody else that they can have that opportunity with. I mean, there are couples out there that they barely speak to each other. Okay. There are children who don't ever speak to their parents, or they don't have friends that hear them. So this relationship with the therapist oftentimes is the first time that somebody talks to somebody about something that happened to them that changed their life. And I gotta tell you, for me, it's a privilege. And when somebody tells me something, especially when they actually voice I have never spoken about this with anybody else, and here I am telling you, there is something, uh, there is some, that's the rewarding part that I was telling you why I left marketing and licensing, because I wanted to make that change in the world. And I know that I'm not changing thousands or millions of people, but I am making a change. I feel like I'm making a change in here, and hopefully that's going to ripple
Mhm.
into other areas. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting you brought up the cultural dynamic. I was going to ask you about that, um, whether or not you saw any um, unique sort of qualities in different cultures as far as the parent-child relationship um, and how you deal with that. Again, being half South American, my mother's from Uruguay, my father's Italian. I understand the nuances, I think, of Latino or Hispanic culture to some degree. There's that machismo, I guess, is the word that comes to mind. Again, as far as what culture sort of tells us, or society tells us what a man should or shouldn't be or do, you know. Um, I'm just curious, are there any other themes or sort of qualities that you see, or dynamics rather, that you see when it comes to a child and the father versus the child and the mother? And is it different if it's a girl or a boy, as far as, again, the potential trauma that might be there? And is it different depending on the parent?
Well, there's really not a hard and fast rule about that. I mean, it's really like case by case. There are some situations in which, if I'm understanding your question correctly, there are some situations in which the involvement of one parent may be more suitable for whatever the situation is, or the involvement of the other. But I can tell you one thing. Um, what what is often forgotten is how important it is the involvement of the father. Okay. In this society, the Latino society and the American society, I cannot speak for all the societies in the world. The mom is the one that is basically the one who is the caregiver in the family. Okay. It's the one that is like watching that and this is very general. I'm not saying that this is with every single person, but um but generally the role of the mom is to be like the one who's like caring for the home and caring for the children. So what happens a lot is that the father dissociates, okay? Dissociates, and that message is picked up by the different entities that take care of the kids. For example, if that is the situation, if there is a problem at school, who gets the call? Mom or dad? Mom will get the call first. Okay. If let me see, what's another situation that I hear that I see all the time? When the kid gets sick, okay, the doctor is gonna call the mom first. When there is an issue with a kid, the mom gets a call, and a lot of times the father does not get the call. So the father starts getting the message of like, well, I'm not important in this relationship, so go ahead, you take care of things. You take care of things. So um at least in my job, okay, in my job I work, as you know, for a nonprofit in Alameda County. We make a conscious effort to always involve the father. Okay. If the mom gets a call, the dad gets a call. If a child is having an issue, we're not just going to let one parent know. Okay. So um so what happens, I think I lost my train of thought here, but so when the father becomes aloof over here, it's like it's not happening because they want to be aloof, but a lot of times society itself pushes them in that direction. Okay. And what they're not recognizing is that this aloofness can also affect, the kid. Okay, both male and female. Okay, because the male generally is watching the dad as a mirror for whom I want to be. Okay, the male is watching the moves, is watching how the dad responds to situations, how the dad expresses emotions, to imitate that. I mean, kids are noticing this ever since they're like 1.5 year old. Okay. And girls are looking at the dad and I'm not saying that this is for all girls, because we know that this is not true for everybody out there. But I'm talking about a lot of times the girl is also looking at the dad for the kind of partner that may be happening in their lives. Okay. So if this happens to be a heterosexual girl, that girl is going to be looking at the dad as the model for the man that they're going to be bringing into their lives. Okay. Whereas the boy is going to, if the boy is going to be looking at the dad for the man that they're going to become in this life. Yeah. I
Well,
mean,
a lot of,
hold
yeah.
on. I just want to say, I want to clarify that that they're also looking at mom big time, big time. So again, this is a big generalization up there, and I want to be clear that what I named right now is also taking into consideration that it's not like this for all boy dad relationship or girl dad relationships. Yeah.
Yeah, and I studied some psychology, but I certainly don't have a degree and I don't practice. But correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of what you're talking about is Freudian, isn't it? Didn't Freud spend a lot of time sort of studying the relationship between parent and mother and child? And a lot of trauma can stem from, again, those sort of childhood experiences with the parents.
I mean, Freud may have started the curiosity of it, but there have been thousands of others who have come up with theories and developed so much out there
Yeah,
that is that Freud. I mean, I think that a lot of people, they think of Freud because of his theory of the Oedipus theory, and
right.
it's like, yeah, okay, thanks, Freud. But that's not necessarily what we are looking at these days.
And for people
There
that don't know
was
what that is, can you just explain what that is real quick? The Oedipus
okay.
complex.
Well, it's a little crazy, but the way that the Freud interpreted the relationship between let me see, between sons and their mothers was that internally and unconsciously the son would want to kill the father and become his mother's husband.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that there was this envy towards the dad for, like, what they for possessing the mother.
Hmm.
So frankly, to me, that tells me more about whatever was going on in Freud's mind than anywhere else, than anything else. Um, there, uh, but we also have got to remember what the times were. It's like
Yeah,
we can't judge what happened, 100 years ago, 150 years
sure.
ago, with the standards and the recognition that we have today.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and going back to the thing you said about again Hispanic culture and the dynamic between the father and the son in particular. Um, I didn't personally experience this, but I know that some of my friends of Mexican descent and other Latin cultures did have. It's not limited to Hispanics, but definitely had fathers that were hard asses. And I mean, they were like drill sergeants with their male uh, sons, and just this lack of sort of affection and vulnerability and even communication. The communication in some cases I've seen was limited to these are the orders, follow the orders, or you'll suffer the consequences. So there's this almost fear of the father. And I think about sort of the example that sets for young men as they're growing up, and again, as typically they learn from example and they think they have to be the same way, and then the effects that has on relationships with the women in their lives. So, last question I wanted to ask you. Um, so, I've been married now almost 25 years. And one very important lesson that I had to learn, and I don't think it's gender specific, but when it comes to communication, I had to learn that sometimes my partner wants to just express themselves without me having to offer any solutions, even if I think I have a very good solution to the problem. What was required of me at the time that I didn't know was just to shut up and listen. So is that a thing? And how does one know when they should just listen and not offer solutions, even if they think they have one?
Well, so Antoine, I have an opening on Wednesday, so I'm gonna keep you in so we can have this conversation. No, 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 no. This is the thing. Um, yes, you're right. This is not gender specific by any means. Sometimes people just need to be heard. Sometimes people just need to be heard. Okay. And I think that again, very general over here. I'm going to speak about this. Um, a lot of times males in particular, because we have been also trained to take action, because we have been trained to to come up with a solution. That's the default. That's the way that we show that we care for you. This is how we show that I love you. This is that I'm showing that I want to do something, for this. But sometimes the other person just wants to be heard, and that's it. So my suggestion would be, first of all, hold it back. Hold it back. All right. And the second thing is, would you like me to give you my thoughts on this? Or do you want me to just hear you? I mean, because I can absolutely hear you. And then the third thing is, what do you need from me right now? Do you need me again to just hear you? Do you want me to give you some suggestions, or do you want me to just give you a hug right now? What is it that you need? Okay. And let the person decide what is it that they need at that moment versus you making that decision of like, this is what needs to happen. Okay. But this that I'm telling you doesn't just apply to relationships. This applies to, I mean, I'm sorry, to a romantic or to couples. This happens in all relationships. Okay. In all relationships, including with your own kids. Okay. I'm not saying your kids, I'm talking you in general here. Including with kids. So it's like, what do you need from me right now? Okay. Do you want your dad to give you a solution? Do you want me to give you a hug? Do you want me to just listen to you? Okay. And you know, there is something magical about that, because if you again let that person express themselves and help them be seen, that person is going to come back to you and say, I do want to hear what you have to say about that. Okay.
Okay,
But it is in their terms, not yours.
got it.
Yeah.
Okay, so very powerful lesson. Definitely was a game changer. There's two different types of conversation. Sometimes you just need to listen. Other times you may be asked to offer suggestions, and it's okay to ask for clarification as to what type of conversation we're
Yeah.
having if you're not
Yeah.
sure.
And
Okay.
hold on, but can I just say one more thing? And also you, or like the person who's there, the person who wants to give the solution, also have to give themselves the permission to not give any solutions, because there are going to be many times that your partner is going to come to you and tell me what I should do here. Tell me what I should do here. So you need to give yourself the permission to say, no, this is got to be your choice. This is got to be your decision. And I am going to support you in whatever decision you make, but you've got to make a decision about this. Yeah.
Yes, I think that was another lesson that I learned is sometimes uh, helping someone is not about giving them answers, but just asking them the right questions. And oftentimes they'll find their own answers.
Right.
Would you say?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Welcome to my
Oh,
work.
yeah. This has been fun, Rene. I really enjoy it. talking to you. You are such a I didn't lead with this, but obviously we've known each other for about 25 years or so.
Uh,
I think I've always enjoyed your positive energy and your enthusiasm for life. And you're so knowledgeable. And I think, you have a heart of gold, and it's obvious that you are meant to help people. And I know I've enjoyed the conversation, and I'm certain anyone watching will learn from you as well. How should people get a hold of you if they want to learn more or about what you're doing?
Oh boy. Well, I don't have a website. Okay. I have a Psychology Today, but I don't have my own website. I'm working on that. Okay. I'm working on that because there are a couple of projects that I'm going to be working on, and I can pass that information over to you. So you're more than welcome to pass it over to everybody else. But if anybody wants to get a hold of me, they can send me a text at my in my business line, which is, should I give a phone number here?
I'll put it in the meeting
Okay.
notes or the video notes, and I'll also put a link to your LinkedIn profile.
Okay, beautiful.
All right,
Wonderful.
fantastic. Rene, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Antoine, for having me here. I enjoyed this very much. Okay.
Me too.